This is Center Stage, putting your firm in the spotlight by highlighting business owners and other industry experts to help take your firm to the next level. Hey everyone, and welcome to Center Stage. I'm your host, John Henson, and today we are talking about something that I know a lot of you out there running your firm struggle with, and that is attracting the right kinds of people to your firm. I know a lot of times you may not even have a problem with lead generation in terms of like quantity, but maybe you have an issue with quality, and maybe you find yourself referring out more than you are actually retaining, which is still a marketing problem. Or maybe you're just looking for higher paying cases, or maybe just specific case types that you enjoy, whatever the case might be. But today I am joined by a practicing attorney. I don't know if you're still practicing or not. I don't remember, but
no, not for the last 5 years, but
okay.
I practiced for 20 years. Yeah.
Got it. So you've been at it for a while. You figured out how to attract the right kinds of clients. And so you're here now to share that wisdom and insight. And that is Adam Ouellette. Thanks for joining us.
Wow. You pronounced my name right, John. Thank you.
Well, see, I did my research.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. Like I was wondering, because I didn't know if it was gonna be like really French, like Ouellette or whatever. But
If you speak it, you say it much better than I do. It's
oh, I
Ouellette,
know.
but in
Yeah.
United States, Ouellette
Mhm.
makes sense for people. All my relatives in Canada, they say it much differently. But me being down in the States my whole life, I just try to make it easy on people because it's a strange last name for sure.
Gotcha. Yeah. So, before we jump in, I know you mentioned it a little bit before. You practiced real estate law for 20 years. What else should we know about you? What's your background, and how did you kind of get to where you are right now, to where you're helping other lawyers out?
Well, one of the things that happened when I first started practicing law, I went to work for a guy that was practicing 25 years, and he, practiced door law, right? Anything that walked in the
Mhm.
door. And one of the things that I was seeing as a new attorney was a decent amount of business, not the amount that we really wanted, when I look back on it, but a decent amount. But the clients, I mean, I might cuss a little bit, but they
No, you're
sucked.
good.
They
Yeah.
really sucked. Is that all right with you, John? Because
Yeah.
ultimately, I won't drop the F bomb if I can help it. But these clients sucked, and they were some of his clients for long periods of time. You know how it goes. The clients that come in, they want things yesterday. They don't want to pay your full bill. They negotiate on every single bill. They don't listen. They don't do what's asked of them. I mean, the list goes on and
Mhm.
on. And so after about a year working with him, I realized there had to be a better way.
Mhm.
And it was interesting, just dealing with all of the rigmarole of these clients. It was very stressful to boot. And I was out networking, right? I mean, that was something that I knew I had to do. I knew I had to get out there and network to bring in my own business, because clearly this guy wasn't out networking and he was allowing whatever came in the door to sign up and pay us. But when I was out networking, I realized that there was so many kinds of people out there. And I did a varied practice, about 70% real estate, but I did civil litigation. I represented businesses. I did business closings. I represented banks. We did a lot of different stuff, albeit real estate heavy. And one of my main referral sources was real estate agents.
Mhm.
And growing up in a household where my mother was a real estate broker, I knew a lot of real estate agents. And to be honest, some of them are idiots. They really are. You know, I don't know what it is about realtors. They think their shit doesn't stink, and they think they're God's gift to humanity. And I got a real estate license at 19. I was selling real estate in college. And so I
Yeah.
knew a lot about that business. But when I was dealing with these idiots, I was like, there's got to be a better way. So I'm researching and trying to figure out, how can I attract, right, ideal clients.
Yeah.
And what it ended up starting out was, let me see what I don't like first, right? I mean, that's the first step in the process
Yeah.
in this little course I have called the Ideal Client Attraction Formula. And I didn't call it customer because this is really geared towards attorneys. This is what I did as
Yeah.
a lawyer to find and attract these ideal customers, prospects at first. But so I started to look at what I didn't want. What were the characteristics of the people that were there that I
Mhm.
didn't really want to deal with anymore? And I just looked at what's the polar opposite of that. So I'm starting to make these lists of who is the ideal client, the avatar, the prospect. And it brought me to a book called Attracting Perfect Customers or something like that. And it was right up my alley. And it's a little bit of metaphysical. Lawyers
Mhm.
are left brain analytical. I was too. But when I read this book, I said, this makes so much sense. You know, uh, Wayne Dyer, what you put your attention on grows. I was a big fan of Wayne Dyer and Tony Robbins, and my mother raised me listening to tapes back in the day. I'm 51 at
Mhm.
this point, but tapes. I'm dating myself. CDs at a certain point,
Yeah.
but I'm listening to all these people, and they're all saying what you put your attention on grows. What you believe about life happens in your reality. And so this book made a lot of sense. And so I started following this stuff. It was it was probably a good 24 years ago that was I was about a year in,
Mhm.
and it made a drastic difference in how we did business, who we did business with, and ultimately we went from this little house on a side road in Hollywood, Florida, down near Fort Lauderdale, to having 4 offices.
Mm.
And it was because of this information, because of content marketing, right? I mean, this
Yeah.
is what came to me after a while. I was an early person in the content marketing. And this was 90, probably 99. I started doing some content marketing. And ultimately, it started out by doing webinars.
Mhm.
Go to webinar back in the day. Um, Earlier than that, it was live. But then when webinars came along,
Yeah.
and I had the ability to record the webinars, put networking together with sharing your expertise, because every lawyer has expertise, and whoever your ideal prospect is needs to know more about the process. I mean, there's a million ways to go about this. And I know, John, you help lawyers do this. So I'm
Yeah.
preaching to the choir with you. But ultimately, when I started to share my expertise and get
Yeah.
it on YouTube, and take that expertise and put it into campaigns for people to sign up, the real estate agents to sign up for this free information, and drive them along a campaign where I build my expertise with them. And I'd get calls. I think it was about 7 emails at the time I was sending out through Constant Contact back in the day. And I know they're still around and they're still doing their thing, but
Mhm.
about 7 emails, and they were all videos, right? Videos. And I was getting calls from people that I'd never met. I'm out pressing the flesh, networking at private clubs and all over the place, realtor functions. And these people are calling me. These realtors are calling me going, I signed up for your videos. I'm on the other side of the state. I'd like to use you because every other attorney around don't seem like they know anything. And so I said, well, I can't do business with you. And I knew at that point I had something very special and
Yeah.
powerful. And so what that did was help me to increase my income. Um, I think about 5 times as much income as I had before. And then the shit hit the fan in '07
Mhm.
when the real estate market tanked. Florida was really hard hit by it. I mean, I was doing closings and I was looking at the credit reports of people sitting at the closing. I'm going, how are you affording a $600,000-$700,000 house? So I knew something was coming with that. But I
Yeah.
implemented those ideas, and new ideas came to do different things other than closing: short sales, mortgage modification stuff,
Yeah.
all kinds of other stuff, bank representations and stuff. But throughout that whole process of shit hitting the fan and splitting off from that partner of 10 years, I always kept doing this focused work on who's ideal. Who are they? Where do they hang out? How can I attract them? How do I get in front of them? Right.
Mhm.
I mean, and that's
Yeah.
what you guys help lawyers do. How do you get in front of those
Yeah.
prospects?
Yeah, and I guess, in your opinion, is that kind of the missing piece there? Because it seems like a lot of firms do tend to attract a lot of people that they don't even end up working with. Maybe they're trying to run Google ads, or, maybe they're trying to focus on search rankings, and all of a sudden, they get a lot of phone calls, right? But it's like, hey, can you help me with setting up an LLC? And it's like, I'm a family law attorney. how did you even make this connection? I mean, is that what you've seen in your experience? And how do how do you find and start trying to weed those people out?
One of the things that I do with SEO in my business now, and I was doing in my businesses in Florida when I was still practicing, was I was targeting the ideal prospect. Who
Mhm,
refers business to you, right? I mean,
mhm,
that's
yeah,
there's differences in end result clients and then referral partners, right? And so I had a distinct referral partner set of mortgage brokers and real estate agents, but I was also attracting clients because I was targeting people that were looking for information on real estate contracts, right? So
mhm,
they were trying to
yeah,
buy a for sale by owner in a really tight market where realtors weren't involved in some of these transactions. And so my target market was very niche, and
yeah,
how I marketed to them through AdWords and Facebook ads and stuff like that was all about who was sending me business and how could I attract those kinds of people. But as far as attracting clients, the way I did that was I got out and networked, right?
mhm,
I got out and networked and told everybody about what I was doing. And I had campaigns for general folk that or business in business or stuff like that. So the generalization of the SEO and keywords, you've got to hone in on who's your audience and who are you trying to attract so that you don't have these broad keywords because you'll waste a lot of time
mhm,
dealing with people that have nothing that you will not work with. Now, if you live in a state where you can get referral fees, that's one thing. But even then, it's a lot of work to refer stuff out and make sure people are treated properly and all that. But ultimately, if you're in a niche, which most attorneys are, there are referral sources. And that's really what I wanted to focus in on in my practice, because those are the people that could send me chunks of business aside
mhm,
from the people that I could get from Facebook ads and the like. It was very, very targeted in terms of what I was sharing and videos and information in general. And so every lawyer that does any kind of business in today's world has referral partners.
mhm,
So let's say, for instance, they're a estate planning attorney, referral partner. There's multiple referral partners for somebody like that. Um, you look at who you're getting business from and how can you serve them? How can you share expertise with them through video, through training, through webinars, and build that trust? And it worked like magic for us. I mean, it really did. And when people say to you, well, you built all this up and then you left. Yeah, because I had 20 years of it and 20 years of the ridiculous stress and
yeah,
all of even good clients can be a pain in the butt. I had enough. And then I figured, let me share some of my expertise with small businesses and attorneys. And a lot of attorneys are in small businesses. And so I had set up a nice system that I was able to sell. I mean, I was able to sell my business when we moved from Florida to North Carolina. And one of the reasons I was able to do that was because I had set this system up. And John and I were talking before we started recording, and I said, John, where the hell were you when I was practicing law, man? I mean, most attorneys are so clueless about this stuff, and I had to figure it out on my own.
yeah.
And ultimately, John's got turnkey solutions for you all that you don't have to figure this stuff out. You're too busy working in your business and you should be working on your business, and John can help you do that. So
Yeah. Well, and one of the things that's interesting is like I think so many lawyers get caught up, and it's honestly our industry's fault for doing this, but so many people get caught up in focusing on keywords and making sure that their search ranking is up to where it should be, but a lot of them still don't do just a good job of just staying in touch, right? And it's not just even staying in touch with the clients that they're working with, but staying in touch with their audience in general. And you talked about you did a lot of webinars, you had to promote those webinars somehow. And so keeping in touch and letting people know that these are the things that you're doing, that provides, I would argue even more value than trying to land on page one of a Google search, because you're staying top of mind with your audience. And one thing that I wanted to ask you about, when you're trying to come up with these webinars, or maybe you're writing blog articles or doing videos or something like that, how did you kind of come up with the topics and the subjects that you were going to speak or write about as a way to hone in on your ideal clients and make sure that you're repelling the ones that you don't want and really attracting the ones that you did?
Well, that's a twofold answer. It's a great question, by the way. The first part of that is to see who is your ideal client, right? What do they represent? And one of the interesting things about when you focus in on who they are, and I was visualizing a certain amount of money at the end of every month, and that brought up all kinds of limiting beliefs, and that really helped me quite a bit. But I was visualizing the kind of people, not what they looked like per se, but how they showed up for me from that list. But the keeping in touch part, how did I come up with the ideas? It's all about their pain that they're in, right? If it's a client, it's about their pain. So you're focusing on their pain points and the solutions you offer to the pain points. And I had come up with hundreds of video ideas. I literally have thousands of video ideas for the business I have now because there is a lot of pain points in being a small business owner.
Yeah.
But when you look at what is their pain, so if it's a referral partner, what are their pains? And it may have nothing to do with the people that they're referring to you. But to me, when I was looking at what realtors' pain was, is that they were clueless about the contracts. And that in itself lent to 50 different videos. So when I looked at, okay, these people are really clueless about it, because they were calling with questions before I started doing these videos. And I'm going, are you really answering? Are you really asking me that question? Because I was like, my God, they are so clueless about it. And look, I became a real estate instructor to teach real estate school in Florida. And when I looked at what we learned through the course, it's very, very basic. So what I started doing was taking the contract itself and putting it in layman's terms. And then I broke it up into sections. And then I took the addendums, and I did videos on that. And so when you put all that stuff together, that solves a lot of their pain, because one of the things I leveraged was the fact that attorneys, if you don't fill a contract out right, correctly, dot the I's, cross the T's, attorneys will swoop in. If someone has buyer's remorse or seller's remorse, they swoop in and say, hey, you screwed the pooch on this one, guys. This is not a valid contract. And when I would put it in terms like that, that's real pain. Like, you get a buyer to the point where they actually sign a contract and they're moving through the process. And look, there's other contingencies, right? There's contingencies in contracts. They got to get a mortgage, blah, blah, blah. But to not have done your job when you really didn't understand what you were doing to begin with it, to me was very powerful. And that was the hook. It was a huge hook where I would say to people in Facebook ads, do you really want an attorney coming in and crushing all of your hard work because you didn't dot an I or cross a T? And that got them. It got them in droves. And I mean, I literally had people from all over the country. Oh my gosh, your training is awesome. Oh, I'm in Florida and I'm only in Broward, Miami, and Palm Beach that I will do closings. But I knew that hook worked. So what's the hook that you can create that will help them? And so then I went above and beyond the contract. What are the other pain points that real estate agents had? So many ideas flowed from that as well. And when you really understand who the ideal client is, the prospect actually, who that prospect is and what they need in general in their life, in their business, regardless of who they're referring to you, they feel cared about, right? And group coaching is something that I also did, where people could come log on a webinar and ask me questions, like Ask Adam, I called it.
Yeah.
And realtors could log in and ask me questions, and I gave them my phone number. People could call me. And so, but that staying in touch piece is so important. I had built a list of, I think, about 1,000 different realtors in the area. And here's the cool thing, John. When I was out networking alone before sharing my expertise, there's a lot of competition in South Florida. I mean, now it's even worse. I've been out of there 8-9 years now, but there was just so many lawyers and title companies and all of that. I was out networking, and people had people they liked, and it was very difficult to break through to them, shaking their hand and, hey, why don't you give us a try? Hey, why don't you give us a try? Once I started sharing that information with them, hey, I've got some contract law webinars and all kinds of videos, it created a situation where it might take years to get someone to say yes, because they have their people that they like and they've used for years, to where I was breaking it down into maybe a couple months. And then when you look at the staying in touch piece, using automation, using systemization of your business, using something like a constant contact or whatever. If I'm in an attorney's shoes, you're going to use something more robust than that. CRMs do this stuff nowadays.
Yeah.
But the fact is, creating a list of videos for those prospects or client or prospective customers and or referral sources, and sending them something every few weeks or every month, depending. I mean, when you have to look at them. Are you going to bother them by sending them something once a week? If you are, don't do it. But
Mhm.
keeping your name in front of them, that was so powerful for me. But then that automation piece where someone's finding you through tailored SEO, blog posts, through
Yeah.
customized keyword stuff, putting them through. So I'm going from 6 months or a year or 2 years, getting people to give us a try, 7 emails, right? I
Yeah.
mean, 7 emails is all it took. And I'm sitting there going, man, I wasted a lot of time. But the technology wasn't around when I first started practicing law. Now the technology is absolutely ridiculous. I mean,
Yeah.
it's amazing what you can do.
Yeah. And one of the interesting things that I heard from you um, early on was that you didn't, and I hear a lot of lawyers like try to do this or see a lot of this, especially with their blog posts, but they try to fit every single scenario, every single if then kind of thing
Yeah.
into one single post. And it turns into like some 2,000 word legal brief. And
Yeah.
like no one's going to read all of that. But within that, you have multiple pieces of content. You can have a 5, 6 part series going through
Yes.
different elements of a contract or, different
Yep.
scenarios or whatever that case is.
Pain
And that's
points.
really
Yep.
brilliant. Yeah, absolutely.
It's powerful because the attention span of most people, 3 minutes.
Hmm.
This is why TikTok and the shorts that
Hmm.
YouTube is now embracing and Facebook shorts,
Yeah.
30 seconds, a minute. How can you drop some knowledge on someone in a minute? You can. You
Hmm.
can. And when you get them hooked into little tidbits, then you go in and you split up a blog post that's 2,000 words into maybe a 5 to 10 minute video in
Hmm.
chunks, and you drip that out. You drip it out. And that's the keeping in touch aspect. But I'm going to tell you, I don't care what kind of law you practice. Uh, if you sat down with the ideal customer avatar, as I call it,
Yeah.
and you looked at their pain points, and whether it's the customer is a referral source or a client, um, you can come up with a ridiculous amount of stuff you can do. And even if it's not SEO,
Hmm.
capable, if you're not going to rank for it, maybe there's a lot of things that I do right now. There's no ranking for any of these things because it's so
Right.
out there that no one's searching for this shit. But the fact is, it's the keeping in touch. So hook them with something really powerful, and then
Hmm.
drip stuff out to them for a year or 2 years. I mean, I had a 2 year campaign where I was dripping stuff out every 2 weeks to a month to people, and I never touched it because as soon as they signed up for videos, it's on autopilot. You don't have to
Yeah.
do any of that.
Yeah.
And so, better than I do at this point, John, getting in front of them, keeping in front of them is extremely powerful. And even if you're out networking and you meet someone, even if you meet someone at a grocery store that could be a referral source or could be a prospective customer, client, ask them if they would like information, right?
Yeah.
And part of the systemization that I did with my businesses back in the day, and I still do it today, is taking a look at every single step of the process, and especially the marketing part, the attraction part. How can you do that better? Leverage that CRM to do that better so that once they become a client and they sign up, how can you teach them about the process to where you don't have to sit down with them for 3 hours? They can watch videos. How do you onboard them? And then post closing the file, how do you keep in touch with them? Because those people are gold. If you did a really good job for them, which you're going to do, right? I mean, if you're watching this podcast or listening to this podcast, you're doing a great job for your clients. That's where the gold is, kids. It's
Yeah.
follow up, it's keeping in front of them. Because if they hear about, oh, I need an estate planning attorney, and that's what you do, and you've done this for people, guess what, who they're going to think of. But if out of sight, out of mind, right, John? I mean, this is the
Right.
key. So stay in front
Yeah.
of them.
Yeah. And one other thing I wanted to ask you about, kind of like on the tail end of this entire process, is this concept of creating raving fans for your
Yes.
firm, right? And I in doing these interviews, I've kind of developed like this cynical lawyer voice in my head, just based on like just objections and pushback. They say it's like, you know, I can get how someone would become a raving fan of a restaurant or a clothing
Mhm.
store or something like that. No one likes lawyers. How can someone be a raving fan of a law firm? What do you say to something like that?
Well, there's ways that I created raving fans, and we've talked about a lot of those ways, but I'm going to
Yeah.
tell you the the most important way to create a raving fan is through systemization. Say that
Mm.
fast 5 times. Systemization. What is systemization? This is something that the E-Myth taught me about 20 something, 30 years ago. I don't even know when it came out, but I read that book when I was still in law school. The E-Myth talks about how McDonald's built their business, right? And how did McDonald's build their business? They gave the same amount of ketchup,
Yeah.
onions on a burger. The bun was perfect. Everything was systematized to where the fries are cooked for only
Mhm.
a, I mean, when you're in McDonald's, and I haven't been there in many years, but you hear that damn beeping going off, it gets louder and louder because the fries need to be only cooked for a certain amount of time. You can do that in your business. This is one of the things I teach in the Ideal Client Attraction Formula course is how do you systematize your business? And what that entails is sitting down and looking at every, and I alluded to it before, every single thing you do from the attraction process to prospect to opting in for information to the initial consultation, all the way through what gets done when, who does it. It's another important thing. Who's doing it? And
Mhm.
how can you make it better? And through automation with what's possible now with CRMs, holy crap, you can do
Yeah.
unbelievable things. And so throughout a process, if you're looking at every single thing you do on a file from start to finish and post close the file,
Yeah.
and you just keep trying to get better in that process. I sat down with my title company folks about 20 years ago and I did this process, and this is what I share in the course is that checklist we came up with 20 something years ago. We had a CRM at the time where we could do this and people could log in, and we were cutting edge, and now it's normal.
Yeah.
But what I said to them is, I said, I want raving fans. I want people that at the end of this say, holy shit, man, this was like the most amazing process. These people have got it going on. And we leverage technology, but also personal touches, phone calls, emails, all of this stuff. People don't like lawyers. They don't, and that's okay. We don't have a great reputation, but they can like you and your firm, and that's the key. And what I
Mhm.
wanted people to do was love me. Like, this guy's outstanding. Everybody in his firm created opportunities to go above and beyond. So that's the other piece. You can systematize the hell out of your business, but if you don't go above and beyond, and it starts with the person that's sitting there when the door opens when they walk in. It starts with the person that's answering the phone,
Yeah.
right? Building the team, ideal team members. I figured that out quickly. you know,
Yeah.
if
Yeah.
if you don't have every piece of that puzzle figured out and someone drops the ball, which, people make mistakes. I'm not saying people aren't going to drop the ball, but if you train them and you've implemented this systemization and systems of going above and beyond and really respecting them and figuring out what they want, we got to a point where we didn't have any objections. We didn't have any complaints. People felt cared for. They felt coddled almost. And it wasn't all personal touch. A lot of it was CRM. So
Yeah.
you can be a raving fan. And I'm going to tell you, when you build and there's a book called Raving Fans I read 20 something years ago. It's a short read, but it's killer. And it's still very, it's still part of the process. And I talk about Raving Fan book in my course. But when you build a raving fan and when the file gets closed, they will go above and beyond to refer you. I'm telling you, it's almost like there's something called the reticular activating system that Tony Robbins teaches about. And it's like when you buy uh, a, a blue Subaru, you're going to see blue cars and Subarus all over the damn place. You're focused in on a specific thing. When someone's out in the world and you created a raving fan, keeping in touch is important too. I don't want to discount that, but
Yeah.
they're going to refer you because you have created a situation where there's not a lot of good customer service nowadays. And they will always remember that, and you will be set aside, apart from everybody else, clearly, but they will refer you to everyone and anyone. And that's what happened with us. So
Yeah.
it's one of those
Yeah.
things that you want to build in.
Yeah. And I'm glad you touched on that, because I mean, it's like, not even just the legal industry, just business overall has set the bar so low for customer experience that you don't have to do that much to provide a great experience for people. And people just have such low expectations in dealing with any kind of business, for whatever reason, that, if you just, like you said, systematize and really put a priority on a good customer experience, that's going to do a lot to create that. So one last thing I want to ask you about, you've mentioned it a couple of times, is your ideal client attraction formula. Tell us, give us as much as you are willing to, and let people know how they can reach out and learn more about it.
Well, there's a link that I shared with you that we'll put in here, right? Ultimately, I have a system in place with an intro video. This is what I teach in, and this is what John will help you do, but you can see how I do it with this small course. It's a relatively short course, but what I do is I drive people into the web page, and there's a video that introduces myself. Who am I? How do I have the expertise to be teaching this and sharing this information, giving some pain points that attorneys and small businesses have, and how those pain points could be answered in a free little course that it's 3 videos, right? So you're utilizing the opt-in, which is basically, hey, share with me your first name and your email, and I'm going to give you some information. Now, in some of my other courses, I've gone straight to, they hit the web page and they get, a sales page effectively. And attorneys sell different products, services and products, right? I mean, they sell wills and trusts and estates and all that stuff. But what I'm doing is walking you through some tips and tools that are free. And then if you're interested, you can purchase my course, which I think is, I don't know, $197 or something like that. And you get group coaching included in it or something to that effect. I've got a lot of these products, so I don't remember exactly what I offer with this, but in the end, I'm giving away information, building up that piece of who is this dude, right? Who's this big 6'9" bald dude? You can't see me on video, but you're a fellow baldy, and I can't grow my beard like you do, but I'm very jealous. It's okay. But who are you, right? I mean, who am I, and what do I have to offer, and how do I have the expertise to be standing there in front of the video camera teaching you stuff? And so that's part of the process, and you're watching it from a level of, if you're an ideal client, you will opt in and you'll see the benefits of it, and you'll want to be part of this process and be part of the mastermind group that we're starting up as well. So
awesome.
Check that out with the link and get some free videos. At least you can unsubscribe if it's not right for you. If you're not the ideal client for me, you probably subscribe, which is fine. But there's a lot of gold in those free videos. And look, we shared a lot of stuff today. And I want to thank John for first inviting me to be a guest, and also for what he does, because I have worked with a lot of attorneys, a lot of unhappy attorneys who aren't making enough money. In terms of my consulting work, where I shift their mindset. I don't do what John does, but John is filling a need that attorneys in general are very good at what they do, practicing law, real crappy in running a business and doing marketing. Absolutely awful. So I said to you this earlier before we started recording, John, but I kudos to what you're doing, because you're offering a service to attorneys that are pretty clueless about even how to run a business, no less marketing. So thank you for doing what you're doing, because it's a value that every attorney needs to look at that's listening to this. We need it. we like I said, if this was around back in the day, I would have hired you, but we just missed each other in terms of 20 years.
Yeah, you turned out all right, so I think it's fine. I appreciate that though. I promise I did not pay him to say that.
No,
That was
nothing.
all
No
impromptu.
payment at all.
Awesome. Well, yeah, so definitely we've got the links in the show notes. I definitely encourage you to check that out and just see, what that system is about. I mean, look, the proof is right there. He worked in it for 20 years. He was able to cash out and now he's living the dream and helping other attorneys out. One final question for you before we wrap up here. If you had one final piece of advice for our audience, what would it be?
It's a good question. The one piece that I always wanted to know early on was that we do stress to ourselves, right? I mean, I suffered a lot of physical ailments because of practicing law, and I'm getting ready to write an article and do videos for a short course I do called Stress Less. It kicked my ass. And one of the things I realized after so many years of practicing was we do stress to ourselves by what we focus on and what we think. And so the practice of law is one of the hardest professions to be in. I know this. It made me physically ill in very many ways. And luckily I'm past that, healed from all of it. But if I just understood that I was doing this to myself by my focus and what I'm thinking, and I was able to shift that back in the day, things would have been a lot easier. They really would have been. Because I had set things up to run without me and I was only working a couple hours a day. And even then, when the clients would complain and I was taking it too seriously. And it's not that you don't want to take clients seriously. I want you to take clients seriously, but we take it to the nth degree. And part of the failings of the bar associations is not understanding that we live in this constant fight or flight as lawyers. And so one of the things I would tell you is stop taking everything so seriously, systematize and automate your businesses, see how you can do things better, and start meditating, start relaxing, start taking time to be with family, because ultimately work is not the most important thing, and having some fun in life is important too. So in the end, take a deep breath and focus in on what you got to do for the day. But when you leave work, leave it there. Don't check emails at 9 o'clock at night. Yeah. Try to have a life.
Yeah. I love that you included that note. It's one of those weird sort of inconsistencies that we have just as a society overall. Like, we have no problem taking all kinds of medication for heartburn or indigestion or any sort of like physical ailments. But then when it comes to our mental health, everyone just kind of like recoils a little bit and is super hesitant to do something about that, when really it's like any other part of your body that you need to take care of. And so I really do appreciate that note. Yeah. Thank you all for continuing to listen. Please leave a rating and review wherever you're consuming the show. It helps us get out in front of more people, helps us help more with these episodes and the other content that we're doing here. That's going to do it. Adam, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks, John. Appreciate the time.
Thanks for listening. To learn more, go to spotlightbranding.com/centerstage.